your reflections? How can you drive deeper understanding of your local personas with feedback?
Well, I mean, everyone has already had some great points. We used to do these things called testathons, which is like a hackathon but for testers. And all you do is you bring down a whole load of like maybe 50, 100 testers on a day, and we would test an application. And we began experimenting with different ways of playing with this idea. And you would get hundreds of results on the day. And just like you were saying, Shazad, like that you may be overwhelmed with a whole lot of information and they may have so much different context to work with. But oftentimes we would find that people just didn't understand or know where or how to accomplish the task they wanted to accomplish, more than the features not being there when we do some of these testing events. So I definitely echo and remember that. I loved what people were saying about hiring diverse teams in the first place. I think when you have people who are in a location, understand a language, it just gives you so much great context from the offset. But also, I would add to that hiring idea of hiring people who are comfortable thinking outside of their own persona. Because we ran an experiment at one of these testathons where we had two groups of people. One group of people, they were told to just test as they are. And we had another group of people where they did a whole exercise playing with and trying to understand various personas before testing. And the second group just were able to uncover so much more richer information and richer insights from that perspective of just making sure they're thinking beyond their own persona. It was pretty cool. And we did a whole lot of research for 2, 3 years on, how do you grow your company and how do you do it in a way that has a quality product at the end of it. And one of the concepts we came up with was, instead of just having a persona, having local personas. And this is really that realization that I think Asiya was talking about, that each location that your application is used in has a viewpoint of how that product should be used. And it's often slightly different. And so when we've seen people trying to test this and improve their product, we've seen three main ways that they've done it. The first is they've actually just sent their team to the location. I think Airbnb team used to do this quite a lot. They would just fly an engineer with a whole load of devices, and it was great because the empathy that the engineer then had to fix and deal with the problems was incredibly huge. But also, when you do that, you kind of miss some of that local context, you miss that local nuance of someone that lives there. And also, not everyone has the budget to continually fly their team to Brazil once a week to find stuff out. And so the second method that we see is very close to what Ash was talking about, which was either using existing customers, beta customers, volunteers, lighthouse customers. And we saw Google Maps do this a lot. So they have lots of Google Maps users. They have particular users that will give them specific feedback. And it's great because it's pretty cheap, right? But we find that sometimes people have the management overhead can be a bit overwhelming. And when people are just, being people, they're not always as reliable and there for you when you need. And I guess the third method that we see people using to try and scale this kind of feedback from local personas is the kind of work that we do, right? Where you have a lightweight model where you can have user panels or testers that work with you immediately. And just as Harsh said, that there's different phases that, teams like us working. There could be the definition phase where you're just trying to get some UX insight on an ideation of your initial product. It could be that early phase when you are trying to just check how the product is working with real people and getting some of the initial issues and bugs out. Or it could be live when things are in production and you have incredible levels of telemetry, but once you go into a certain location, you don't know why the numbers are saying what they're saying. And sometimes having someone on the ground, us doing testing on the ground, can often help with that. So that gives a little bit of context onto how we fit into some of the stuff that have already been spoken about. I'm going to pass back to you, Adam, to lead us into probably some really cool questions that I've seen coming through.